What fascinating stories we were hearing. Nirmit, Abhinandan. And actually, these are the stories which show you where we are headed in the future. And I remember when Abhijit came and we were discussing, he said, talk about what is going to be the next big thing in India. Actually, what is going to be the next big thing is these people who were talking about it. And frankly, the story of Republic also is a story of the next big thing in India. But what we discuss, we'll speak, and what I think is going to be happening in India now is one of the most interesting times in our history. We are now coming close to an inflection point which each one of you will witness and be a part of. And an inflection point, as you know, is a point which completely takes away from the past and brings you to a completely new future. But before that, let me just step back, and before I speak to you about the next 8,000 days, let's look about the past 3,500 days. Many people in the world are terming it as the defining decade of India. 3,500 days, the defining decade of India. Look back. The story of the past 3,500 days of India is the story of a resolute leader. You just celebrated that birthday. Is the story of a resilient nation, and is the story of both working together in a relentless manner. And these 3 R's together are creating something which is magical, which is the magic of inclusion and empowerment. Just think about these 2 words when I explain that to you. Inclusion, empowerment. See how it has changed in the past 3,500 days for each one of you, from getting your driving license to getting your passport to everything else. And most interestingly, how all this is coming together to creating a transformation which is unprecedented in the history of the free world. And what this is leading us next to is the inflection point which will change the life of each one of us individually and the nation collectively. And remember, this story resonates, and let me repeat it. The story is of a resolute leader, a resilient nation, and working with a relentless zeal. In fact, you know what really impressed me? Can you think of one individual you know, forget about a leader, who's worked non-stop for 8,747 days, 18 hours a day? Shut your eyes and think about it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the way a leader sets a record for resilience and sets a record for everyone working relentlessly. And that is where the nation has come today. And as I look at it, look at the past 3,500 days. You have grown 105%. China, 77%. Of those 10 years, 7 years, you were the fastest growing economy on the planet. 2 of those years, you were the second fastest. 1, let's write it away, we got into COVID. Interesting thing about COVID, you went into COVID being the fastest growing large economy on the planet. You came out of COVID being the fastest growing large economy on the planet. And don't forget, in the end of March in 2020, when this pandemic hit us, when the worst ever pandemic or a life situation for anyone in humanity in whole came and hit us, the WHO had said the future of the world will depend on how India manages this virus. You remember that, right? Can you think just 30 months ago, could you be sitting in this room without a mask? You had no playbook. You did not have vaccines, you did not have PPEs. And yet, you came out of being the fastest growing large economy on the planet. Remember? A resolute leader, a resilient nation with a relentless zeal. Don't forget these three qualities together, because they are the ones which are establishing you to be the next superpower on this planet. And let's just think what happened in these 3,500 days which has brought us to this. And there's so much which has happened, but let me just pick up 2 points. The first result of these was that 250 million people moved above the poverty line. So 2014, your GDP was 2 trillion. 2023, your GDP was about 3.3 trillion. In 1.3 trillion movement, you moved 250 million people above the poverty line. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I'll come back to you later when I'm taking you to my inflection point. But let me bring about 2 points, and there's so much which has happened in this past 10 years that India, it was very interesting. You showed a clip when I was speaking to Republic and I was in Davos. And in that clip on a round table, there were 2 very interesting things said. It was a round table of 18 investors, institutional investors. One had said that he's going to increase his exposure in India by 3x, and the other one asked him why. He said 2 things. One, India is changing by the minute. But I tell you the second thing which he said, every tomorrow of India is better than today. It was not me. It was a global institutional investor who's actually putting their money with you. And the first point I bring up here is the Jan Dhan. 500 million bank accounts opened, the world's largest financial inclusion program. And sometimes we get lost in numbers. Have you remembered the first time you opened a bank account and the first time you had a checkbook? And you wrote that check? It's not just about check. It's about a mindset. It's about inclusion. It's about empowerment. When Abhidandan tells you that he is going to create one of the world's largest and the best services, or when Nirmit shows you that how AI is going to change the future of India and how they want to change it, it comes from there. The results of that, for the first time in our history, you have a sense of inclusion and empowerment for each one of those 1.4 billion. And let me give you an interesting example on that one. There were more women bank accounts than men. Women bank accounts in urban India hold higher balances than that of men. And let me tell you something which touched me the most. For the first time in our history, there are more girls in our primary school, there are more girls in our secondary school, there are more girls in our senior school than ever time before. This is inclusion. This is empowerment. And I am just bringing all this to you is just to show that how from the villages of India, each and every individual is being able to participate in this growth story. I'll just take one more example of this of the past 3,500 days. Digitization. To my mind, the biggest single element which is shaping the future of each one of us individually and collectively the nation. If one thing I have to pick up, it is digitization. It has democratized our access to opportunity, our access to capital, our ability to participate in the growth of India, and our ability to take the advantages of the growth of India. For the first time in human history, you have the power of 1.4 billion minds empowered to take that on. And the other interesting thing about digitization, and you heard what I had said at that point of time, the thing I think pick up on real-time transactions. Why I pick up on real-time transactions is that real-time transactions is one example to show how fast a society adopts new technology and adapts to new technology. And the future of the world will depend on every society's ability to do that. And you have shown that you have the highest penchant to be able to both adopt and adapt. 22, you did 46 billion transactions. China was 17 billion. 23, you did 78 billion transactions. 24, you did 118 billion transactions. You know what's your run rate for 25? Over 200 billion transactions. You did 18 billion last month itself. And remember, real-time transactions is nothing else, but it is also about that rupee being able to do more transactions in a shorter period of time. The ability to do more for less. And the digitization, let me give you one small example on how it has changed our lives and is changing our lives for the future. You know your client, KYC? Each one of you opened a bank account, you needed to do it. It is core. If we do our KYC right, Prashant can send the medicines to you. Ajay can advise you on all your financial instruments. The moment you have a centralized KYC, right? You know what was the cost of doing a KYC 3,000 days ago? To do your single KYC, how much did banks spend to get your KYC done? Close to 1,000 rupees. 1,000 rupees per KYC. Ajay used to do a lot of them. He was a part of the consumer bank and one of the most successful stories of Citibank. You know what is the cost of that KYC today? Anybody wants to take a guess? I told you 1,000 rupees. Ajay, 1,000 rupees at one time? It's 15 paise today. The change is unbelievable. Are you realizing something as core as a KYC? And if you get that KYC right, I can give you a driving license, I can give you everything else, including your passport, if there's one centralized KYC. And your banking and everything with it. That cost has come down from 1,000 to 15 paise. That means what? With your single rupee, you're being able to do much more than you ever did. And one of the very interesting examples of that is with all our young startups, friends which are sitting here. I remember when we launched Startup India on 16 January 2016, we had registered about 435 odd startups. Today, you all know we have close to 200,000 startups registered. But I'll tell you the interesting part of our startups. Today, in 700 out of 770 districts of India, I have a startup registered. The story of Startup of India is not just about the metros and the 12 big centers. It's a story of each and every village and small town contributing to the growth of India. And you know, 2/3, 60% of the startups from tier 2, tier 3 cities, well, women-led startups from tier 2, tier 3 cities are 66% of total women-led startups. And let me tell you, when you heard Nirmit and you'll hear Prashant and you hear others, last year, when venture capital funding was being given to startups, 40% of those startups had a global business model. They were solving a problem for 8 billion of the world's population and not just 1.4 billion. India today has the ambition and the ability to be and sort out the problems of the world. And that is where is the ambition of each one of our youngsters, which is taking it forward. That is what you call is a transformation. A resolute leader, a resilient nation, both working with a relentless zeal. And the interesting thing I'll bring to you, let me touch with you on the toughest time which we've all gone through in our lives, including the toughest time the entire planet went through it. COVID, that little virus created havoc in our lives. You know, in those 22 months, you ran the world's largest vaccine program, over 2 billion vaccines, most of them free. You were actually one of the few countries which created your own vaccines. You ran the world's largest medical support program. You gave medicines to over 135 countries, not just yourself. Don't forget, in March, 22nd of March, you did not have PPEs in India, right? We were scurrying around to find even a face mask. Forget about ventilators. In July 15th of that year, you exported PPEs, not just for your own self, but to the entire world. And you, who did it for you? Your SMEs and your MSMEs. They changed their business models. They tweaked it. They pivoted it. They created it. And I'll tell you two most interesting things which happened during that time. You did all this. And by the way, you also ran the world's largest food support program ever in the history of mankind. 800 million people, you add Europe and the US together, were given food for 2 years. And remember, each one of you were locked in your rooms, not even sitting with your family. Think about the process of doing that food. Somebody had to cook it, somebody had to pack it, somebody had to transport it, and somebody had to deliver it. India did it. And let me tell you the two most interesting things which we always forget of what happened in COVID. This was to save lives. You ran the world's largest water sustainability program even in that lockdown. You know the Jal Jeevan Mission? None of you knew it, right? The problem with us is we don't even know what we've done. That Jal Jeevan Mission created a drinking water tap to 150 million new individuals during that lockdown. 150 million individuals got a drinking water tap. Thinking about creating a drinking water tap. You need to get a source of water, you need to lay a pipe, you need to take it there, you need to put a meter, you need to see how you're going to take it away. While the world was locked, you were creating work and you were helping your people. And you know what is most interesting about this room, and Ajay will talk about it? When you started COVID on the 30th of March 20, we had 32 million depository accounts, investment accounts. On September 23, you had 100 million. The world was locked. India was working. And you were creating that platform and machine which will fund the growth of New India. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the resilience of India. The entire world has stood up and acknowledged it, and that is where it is bringing your investments to you. This has shown a resolute leader. Without a playbook, without anything, you created and went through one of the harshest times out with success and worked with a relentless zeal together. Remember, you went into the COVID by being the fastest growing economy on the planet. You walked out of COVID remaining the fastest growing economy on the planet. This is what you accomplished. And see where we were last year, 2024. You did to perfection the largest and the most complicated exercise in the free world ever. Do you know what I'm talking about? 12% of the world votes to elect your prime minister. 12% of the world votes to elect them. It's the most complicated exercise on the planet. 1 billion people having the ability to exercise their franchise. And yet you did it. What else did you do last year? You were the fastest growing economy on the planet. 16% of the world's growth came from India. 16% of the world's growth. And you know what touches me the most out of that? 30 million people moved above the poverty line. They were in a position where they had the ability to dream and participate in that dream. And if I can leave you with one small thought on that one before I go to my next point. There is a thing called IOCR, and I don't want to sound like an economist and make it worse. It's incremental output capital ratio. It's a very important point. You all missed it. It came 3 months ago as a small article in the Financial Times. We all missed it. What it means is, how much do you have to invest to get $1 extra of GDP? Right? It's very important to show the efficiency and how fast your rupee can go. 2014, you had to invest 7.7 to get 1 unit of GDP. Last year, 4.4. China is at 7. Japan is at 3.4. Korea is at 2.6. We are coming closer to a Japan and Korea. See the efficiency. The rupee which you have is now bringing you much more than it ever did. And why I'm telling you all this is that how fast you are now coming to what, to my mind, is the next inflection point which is going to be coming in our history. And what I was wanting to look at is what is going to change for me in the next 8,000 days. What is going to propel and drive this growth? The fundamental is that early next year, you will have 1 billion people with a phone, 1 billion people in the internet, 1 billion people with a unique identity, 1 billion people with bank accounts, and many other things. And think now what is possible. And Nirmit has also shown you what AI, the magic it can do, right? This is getting you ready all for an inflection point. An inflection point means that you break away from all the trends of the past and you create a new trend and a pace for yourself for the future. And it is that, and I was thinking about it, that what will be the engine of our growth? The biggest engine of our growth is now getting propelled. You have 65 million MSMEs. The MSME is the backbone of any economy on the planet. It's the supply chain, it's the supplier, it is the exporter, it is the job giver. Your MSMEs give you what? They give you 1/3 of your GDP. They give you about 40% of your manufacturing. They give you 45% of your exports. You have 65 million. Let me just put it in perspective. Entire Europe has 35 million. This engine is now waking up. And what is happening for them is, what did the MSME require to wake up? They wanted access to finance, access to market, access to technology, right? You had MSMEs which were in the market borrowing anywhere between 18 to 24% if they were better. I'm going to finish soon, Abid. I know I'm covering my point. What is happening with digitization? That you have the ability to get into the nooks and corners of the country. Your microfinance business is picking up. One of your fastest growing businesses is microfinance. For the past 2 years, it's grown at over 86%. But most importantly, all your lending until now was on a collateral. Either they'll take your house or they'll take your land. And you didn't have it. Because of digitization, for the first time, I can lend to you based on your cash flow. And that is what the MSME wanted. Just imagine somebody who was borrowing at 22%, going to get it at 12 to 14%. He has now access to capital. He has access to markets. Your papad being made or your coffee from Karnataka is now being exported directly to Paris. I don't know if you know, during COVID, 3 of our products became global products. Ashwagandha, turmeric. We, by the way, have the best turmeric in the world. The curcumin content in our turmeric is 5 to 7%. Global is just 2%. We exported it to the entire world. And rice husk. Is sab goal, which is used to call it? I don't know, many of you will not know the oldies word. These were one of the largest exports which went up by over 500% during COVID to the other parts of the world. Your Ayush was coming into fold. These are the people going to come up and you know what is the strength of your MSME? The strength of your MSME is the ability to pivot a business. The strength of your MSME is frugal innovation. But I'll tell you the most important strength of your MSME is the ability to get a job done, regardless of the resources available. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the new India which is shaping it up. And I'll take you to my last point, which I said where it is coming. You had your first trillion in 2007, 60 years. You had your second trillion of the GDP in 2014-15, another 8 years, 7-8 years. Your third trillion in about 21-22. When you moved from 2014 to 2023, you had that 1.3 trillion extra. What was the impact? You moved 250 million people above poverty, remember? In my mind, your 6th, 7th, 8th trillion will be in less than 12 months each. That's the pace at which we are going. You know, when was the inflection point of China? Start thinking, when did you start saying that China is the big boy on the table? Think. 2008, 2009? That was the time when they started adding $1 trillion every year to their GDP. And you are getting to that point in the early 30s. And let me tell you where it is coming from. If I just look at the average growth of states between 2014 and 2019, average growth rate, 22 of our states grew at over 10%. The balance 14 grew at 8 to 10%. The number is not unreal. The number is real. I've given you a lot of numbers. Frankly, this change is not just of numbers. This change is deep inside. This change is a change of hearts. This is a change of minds. You remember 23rd September 23? Everyone was glued to the television set. Why? When we were landing on the dark side of the moon, and everybody was watching that television. You remember when Prajna, our chess guy, the video which went viral, he was in the room playing the final. The moment his father was walking in and outside in the corridor, and he heard it, and how he jumped with glee. It was not him alone. It was each and every Indian. And you know what you're forgetting? Last year, you had the World Athletic Championship in Budapest. You were never known for athletics. Your 400 to 400 meter men's got to the final for the first time in our history. And I remember, just when the race finished and the TV person reached him, that guy had never had shoes. One of them came from a village. And he asked him first in English. He couldn't answer. So then somebody translated it in Hindi. He said, मैं यहाँ पे आया था करने के लिए. मैं बिना करे वापस नहीं जाता. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of New India is a reality. But let me tell you the thing about inflection points which I started with. Inflection points have a lot of stories about the past, and there are new stories about the future. You will be the stories you adopt. Be careful on the stories which you take on. Remember, you are blessed today. And I take you back to the point. A resolute leader, a resilient nation, working with a relentless zeal, with the trust, the faith, and the belief कि अब करके ही दिखाएंगे. Thank you.